My name is Vineet Mansukhani. I'm from the Fort Worth area. I'm a raised dad of two teen daughters who are almost aged out of the system. I do have one paper, an exact 50-50 possession, and I actually got sole exclusive on all the major decision making on the kids. But I haven't seen my older one in 2 years, and I haven't seen the younger one in 1 year. Strange. But anyway, in the process, I started to study the trauma aspects of it, and I think I've become a self-taught expert on the trauma aspects of it. Now, one of the things I like to suggest is there is a 21st century breakthrough science of adverse childhood experiences. It looks at the children's experience and it shows the progression, and it's not pretty, it's pretty bad, and it eventually, besides causing all kinds of trauma and disruption in the child's life, it eventually leads to premature death. So there is a direct connection with what is happening here and death, manslaughter, genocidal manslaughter. So what the system is doing is basically what I'm calling it, what I call it hashtag family shredding. This is leading to the American super Holocaust. And these people need to be tried for crimes against humanity, just like the Americans did at the end of World War II, when the Nazis were tried. This is how bad it is. And we need to, this is not something trivial. This is not some parent who lost custody saying sour grapes. This is killing people. And these people are they are monetizing and profiting off that. It's simply unconscionable and unacceptable for a civilized society with high income, high development, to even allow this to happen anymore. It should go on one more day. So anyway, what the ASA study, the advantage of the ASA study is two. Number one, it is heavily supported by the federal government. They are rolling it out. The Texas rollout of it started in 2015. At this point, out of the 50 states, 35 states are in. So the beauty of it is if they are supporting it with their right hand, then they can't be doing all this opposite damage with their left hand. We ride the coattails of ACEs to our advantage because SAMHSA and CDC is the major funding from the federal government to push this through. They even have grants for this. We could write grants and that would be another way of generating funding. The bottom line is that this is an intergenerational transmission of trauma from one generation to the next. And instead of cutting it off and protecting the children, what the whole system is doing is aiding, abetting, magnifying, and enabling the transmission of trauma and magnifying the transmission of trauma from one generation to the next. It's insanity. One of the premier and oldest organizations in the US for mental health America, in September 2014 put out 2 reports. And the first report says, we are headed to a mental health pandemic, and we are one of the worst in the Western developed democracies. And basically what is happening is we are handing out trauma like Halloween candy. It's a trauma tsunami. This is complete insanity what we're doing. The number 2 aspect of, this knowledge of trauma has existed going back 50, 70 years. But the beauty of the ASA study is it makes it very simple. You don't need an expert. It's very simple. There are 10 ACE cards. You either have it or not, and 1 point for each one, maximum score of 10 points. The higher the score, the worse it is. So as soon as you get to a score of higher than 5, 6 through 10, you're looking at a 20-year reduction in life expectancy. It's causing death. Most of the children that are caught up in divorce have a A score of between 6 to 8 typically. Some of them will have it even higher. So basically, the second point I wanted to make is we have to start with what the kids need. It's not about the mother, it's not about the father, it's about the kids. And that is the, as an engineer, I'm an electrical engineer with then software masters. Whenever we worked on problems, we looked at what was the end goal, where do we want to be, and then you work your way backwards from there. We are in such a mess, we are so much in the wilderness, we got to work our way. But first you have to design what is it that is, what the kids need. The marriage was, our forefathers created the concept of marriage because it is an incubator and a nurturer for our children, our future. And we have to identify what that is and then work our way backwards from there as to how do we go back from the wilderness back to that, the ideal or the most optimal situation. We have to work towards that. Finally, the problem here, the third point I wanted to make is this is a socio-political problem. It is not just the courts. The courts are responding to the rest of the environment. This problem is aided, abetted, wall to wall by the entire government. It is the executive, it's the legislature and the courts that are all participate in this. So I hear many of you talk about court corruption, court dysfunction. It is, you have to broaden your focus, it's bigger. And you have to, unless you go after the whole thing, you ain't going to solve it. Okay. And then it comes down to the society too. We have societal paradigms and ideologies that are aiding, abetting and empowering this. And our government is pandering, catering and using that and being driven by that. So I can tell you this, I came to the US from India more than 30 years ago. When I came here, I was a young man and I was for some of this 1960s, 1970s, radical liberalism and all that. I thought it was pretty cool. But now, with some experience, I know that it's not that cool. In fact, some of it is outright lethal and deadly. Okay, and so we need to go back and see, when we say, I don't like this result, I want to change it. But I discovered part of me was also part of the problem because part of me was aiding and believing in that. So I came to my own conclusion that first, before I can fix the system, I have to fix myself. I have to rid myself from some of this thinking that creates the situation. Only then can I go and fix others and fix the system. First I have to fix myself. So we, all of us, have to look at this very hard and say, what is it that's in me that's aiding this? If I kind of try to fight this with that still in me, I'm personally conflicted. How can I solve it if I'm myself conflicted? So you have to kind of, I would suggest you look at that and try to kind of get rid of that, and then we are far more effective and we can be better stewards to fixing this problem.